this video, we're going to be doing something very simple, yet another top 5, but this time we're going to be going over more anoles, believe it or not. Anyways, roll that intro. Now, in this video, I wanted to keep the focus mostly towards anoles that would say make good pets. You know, that most people can get home and say, hey, I like this animal, it's good for me, and I can work with it, and we have some great experience with the animal.
So, for these 5 different anoles, that's what they're going to try to fit, try to be, and definitely going to be, and you'll have some disclaimers of certain slight different behavior-wise, if you catch my drift.
So, Anoles barshades. This is a Cuban anole species, and you may be surprised. Cuban animals typically are pretty chill guys. But, you know, the Cuban anole right here is a Cuban cliff anole. This anole will typically be found on cliff sides, and, well, that's it. Mostly in western Cuba. Honestly, there isn't really no sightings of them outside of western Cuba. That's all we're gonna say. In fact, some of the best known information on this species is actually from when a guy went over there looking for a completely different anole, and then they were in a tobacco field and they started finding them, which is hilarious if you ask me. One of the best sources of information on this species isn't even related to them directly, because they weren't even like going out to find them, which means they could go back and do a lot more better stuff because they now could have the intent to find them.
At least that's what I thought when I was just going off my memory, but I was
wrong. Crazy if you ask me. Crazy. But behavior-wise, these animals are surprisingly bold. Very bold little anoles. They're always out, and they're super pretty, and even when they fire down, when in the rare cases they do, they're still amazing to look at, as you're seeing. Most of the time, they're going to still be fired up. They do well in pairs, if you can find a pair, mind you. Genuinely, they're somewhat hard to find. That's why they're so far behind, and they're the most probably anole-like in behavior out of this list, if you ask me. But this anole is super tough, super interesting, and if you can get your hands on them after the searching, super fun animals to watch. I'm talking they're going to be around the enclosure, typically on the back side of the wall, come out to hunt a little bit or drink water. If you have a pair, if you got lucky enough to score that, or even maybe be one of the few people who works with them and breeds them. Well, I'm sure you know all the enjoys, but for the people who don't know, they're going to come up and they're going to just start, boom, you know, doing dewlap displays, because they technically don't have them, but I don't know what you call this. And it's fun. It's amazing to watch, if you ask me. Super cool. So in the video about anoles that are super, well, decent pets, let's be honest. Most anoles aren't great pets for the beginner, but there are some good outliers, and that's what this video is here to highlight. Let's talk about the false chameleon. I could have placed them in number 1, and honestly, they really could have been. But false chameleons get talked about a lot on this channel. So there's a lot of information on them. They're, hell, even not on my channel, they're somewhat well known. So I try to be a less biased than what I normally am, and trying to put them a little back, because I have a tendency to put them above them and just glaze them, essentially. So, trying to dial it back. The animal is super great. Best pet anole, to be genuine with them, because these animals are almost like geckos. At least, it's hard to say. Behavior-wise, they are super bold. They're ready to come out. They're chill. They tolerate interacting with people extremely well. Now, when it comes to that, that's something you don't see often at all when it comes to anoles, which is something a lot of people are like, anoles suck. Well, guys, calm down. They're not meant for everyone. This animal is great, and it helps a lot of people maybe break their way into other anoles. I know it surely did for me, not to mention their other locales. Luckily, I said that, which means that the rest of the video, you're safe from the Cuban false chameleon. Well, technically, I meant species. You know, different species, which all are fantastic. Now, I think a good one to go after this is one I have been working with for a good chunk of time, over a year to be honest. I've grown them out since they were itty little babies, and this animal has just been a joy to work with, and it really allowed me to learn more about anoles outside of false chameleons, which is Anoles smallwoodii. This anole is an anole from Cuba. You can find them particularly around this part of the island, at least the one we have in the U.S. pet trade, at least commonly. There is one other in the trade, but that is extremely uncommon to find and can be quite expensive if you do somehow manage to get your hands on. They're still really pretty animals, so give it a couple years, they're probably gonna be more available. But the main one you're gonna see in the hobby is really nice. This species is one of the more smaller of the crown giants, but that's honestly a plus because some of these anoles of the crown giant family get absolutely massive. But this animal does not get as big as the other crown giants, but still has a lot of that crown giant behavior, which also can be translated in being somewhat bold. Now, out of the box, this animal will be very flighty, very bold, but out of the box, they're typically going to be a little 2-month-old baby that you're going to have to deal with. And during that process of raising the animal and growing up, and if you're treating it properly like I've done, well, they are extremely great animal staff. They're always going to be out. They're going to be active eaters, voracious hunters. They get along with their pair mates, and hell, I'll even say they tolerate me pretty well. These was the first anole outside of false chameleons, aka more normal anoles, let's be honest, and who would tongue feed off me and come out of the enclosure on my arm, which was a magical experience, which has allowed me to go ahead and start doing this with all of my other anoles. Minus them, the blue beauties, they bite really hard, and I'm not as passionate about them about, say, my lutes or smalls or Cuban falses or Farius or all the other anoles around me. But they're really cool, and I do see a lot of success stories with the blue beauties still. They won't be in this video. That's what you were hoping for. But yeah, small wood eyes, super sick animal. If you can't get your hands on them, they're very, very easy to get if you know where to look. And I'll probably be breeding some later this year, knock on wood. My enclosures are wooden. Watch my DOI videos if you want to know how I did that. Ooh, but our next one will be another Cuban anole. Don't worry, not everyone in this video will be a Cuban native. Most of them are, though. This anole is Anoles Luteogularis. Now, I've talked about them briefly in another top 5 here, actually, where they were basically the best one I mentioned. Like, hey guys, this is an anole that we thought we're never going to get in the hobby, but they were a massive success story. So watch this. This is hope for the rest, essentially. Which, kudos, I didn't mention a lot. But this is an anole that I will say is the best behavior-wise crown giants, depending on who you're asking, because technically to some people, Cuban false chameleon is a crown giant, which to me they kind of are, but they aren't at the same time. Ask me on Wednesday, it's different. Ask me on Tuesday, it's different. It's kind of a guessing game if you get my drift. But Luteogularis, as you see behind me, they're not really out. They're more towards the back because this video is being filmed somewhat late. You know, lights are going to go off in approximately an hour right now. But these animals are pretty bold. I'm talking, when I raised up my babies I had, they were like the small wood eyes, but a lot more bold, in fact. A lot less flighty than them, but the boldness was there. Very bold. But, you know, I didn't keep those, obviously, and I sold those. That's because I managed to acquire an adult trio, and one I've worked with prior. I think she was 10, 11 months when I got her, and I got to work with her pretty much till I got these, like, 12-month-old at the time, mind you, 12 months at the time plus age of the pair that's now a trio. Which all these animals are certainly bold, especially that male. If you go on my Instagram, I post them all the time. They're schizo. You know, these animals I put a lot of time into even when they got here, and now they'll walk up on my arm, as you're seeing. They'll drink out of a cup, which is crazy. They'll drink out of water bowls. They hunt out of bowls. You know, they run up to the door when I have tongs up because it's like food. Oh my god, he has food. Let's lose all rationality. And on top of that, you know, occasionally I forget to close this and the door's just kind of on there. And every time I realize in the morning how cooked I am, and then I looked in there and, well, everyone's just sitting in there and I'm like, ooh. And then I do it next month. I never learn. I've actually half learned a lot because it hasn't happened in like months now, but knock on wood. Again, watch my DIY videos. Ooh. Yeah, super cool anole. Now, the last one will actually be probably my first or second favorite anole I own or just know about, depending on what day you ask, which is the Jamaican twig anole or Anoles valelensi. This is a twig anole from Jamaica, and it's one of my only Jamaican reptiles I own at the moment. Remember that in a couple of months, guys. Yeah, but they're super fun, and I love these guys. I'm telling you, I've been after them since I was a wee old 16-year-old who got interviewed by Dave Kaufman. I knew about 3 anoles at the time that I wanted, 4 actually, mind you, which was the Cuban night anole, you know, the real common ones, the false chameleon, and blue beauties. Blue beauties at the time were about $5,000 plus for a pair, and that was way outside of my pockets. They were wanting to fight me and strangle me just thinking about that idea. And I don't blame them, because a year later their price dropped dramatically because there's a lot more breeders, and essentially COVID, recessions, it's a lot of stuff. Their price dropped. Cool for me, because now I have them. But one of them eluded me completely. It wasn't because they were always out of my pocket range, my financial budget. It was always because I could never find them. I only saw them online. I only knew their name. I could never find a video. I could never find anyone who was working with them. So they sat on my wait list for years, if you watch that video. And then finally, once I managed to get my hands on them, my expectations were succeeded, and just they kept going crazier. It's like my expectations for them were here, and then once I get them, it overflowed, because everything I knew about them, they were amazing. These animals are very bold animals, and if you do work with them, they are pretty more outgoing animals. I know there are people who will handle them occasionally, or at least say you can. From my experience, if I wanted to, I could, but I don't see a point because they're so small, and I just don't really care to do that. I have so many in this room, and I'm more so here. I just love watching them, to be more for real with you. I'll sit down sometimes on the floor, and I'll just do this all day. Watching them move across the sticks real slow, like just moving, trying to be a stick, make sure no one sees them, and then I'll throw crickets in there to get the female fat to lay me some more eggs.
Oh my god, that's so fucking cool.
And then they just like that, and then they start going crazy, especially the male. And then of recent, I've even managed to get tongue feeding off of them. These animals are fascinating little creatures to watch, to learn from, and just do everything. Their only true downside is that they are horribly hard to get, but in the next couple of years they are going to be going up. One, with obviously I'm breeding them, so there's another breeder on the table. There's more breeders in Canada now. Some may even get exported overseas to Germany finally, because in Germany they have a extremely small population. I only know of one breeder in that whole UK area, and which is crazy for an anole, because most of them stay in Germany, if you didn't know that. But with that along, oh hey, doing weird twig anole stuff actually right now. But, you know, that animal is going to go up. There's going to be a lot more people working with them. My buddies working with them. My other buddies working with them. I'm going to try to get more pairs into the hands of other people, because they are sexable out of the egg. It is possible. Give it 2 more years, and I guarantee you're going to see them all over the place. Anyways, end of the video. Let me know what I pick, and watch all the videos I suggested you should watch. Ooh.